Oh, for what?
Yeah, thanks. So it doesn't look like you're wearing shorts.
Okay.
Oh, we are on. We are on
We're
live.
on.
Welcome to 3D Learner. We are glad that you're here. We're going to talk about goal setting for your child's outrageous to success tonight. Hopefully, we have everything working and we can hear each other. And we're glad you joined us. We're going to give it
People, a few
probably
minutes.
another few seconds.
Whoops.
Whoops. Well, that's fine. You can just start with that.
Actually, I'm going to go back. And then close that.
We'd love to be able to have your comments of wherever you might be from and what grade your child might be at and how your school year. I think for some of our viewers that might actually be over this week, which it's been heartening for us to be able to watch some of our past students graduate high school, graduate middle school, graduate elementary school. It just shows the years pass and we are not getting any older.
We're getting younger, just,
What? Thanks to working with all of these really great 3D learners.
And if anybody's here and wants to tell us where you're from, and anything else you want to tell us, we'd be more than happy to.
And if you're seeing it on a rebroadcast, please don't hesitate to make comments. If any time we actually get those, we will do our best to be able to get back to you as early as possible. All right.
And one of the things about it, we're going to talk about goal setting tonight, but at 3D Learner, we've been doing this for 25 years, and we understand that every parent's goal is different, and we work to accomplish the goals you want to achieve within our capabilities. So
we said every child is different, but we also know possibilities are endless.
So as one person said, you know nothing about horseback riding, but you made my child a much better horseback rider.
Oh, well.
Wherever.
All right. Well, we're going to start tonight's presentation on goal setting, and we're going to have Mark pull it up and share it.
Okay, I will do that.
Again, we're Mira and Mark Halpert from 3D Learner. We help kids who learn differently. We call them 3D learners or right brain learners. And we want to hear about your experiences with your right brain learner. And
if you have questions during it, feel free to post them in the comment section. We'll try to address them. And as Mira said, we're in it to win it. And if anybody wants to contact us at any point in time, they can reach us at 561-361-7495. And if you want to book a no-cost Zoom call, it's www.3dlearner.com/booknow. And that makes it easy. Just to give you a little background, we've done a couple of presentations already. First one on outrageous success is the only option and assessing for success. And anybody who wants to view those can view those at our YouTube channel, branded as 3D Learner. So with that, we'll start now. And tonight we're talking about goal setting for outrageous success. And we talk about achieving outrageous success because that's, in fact, what we're trying to accomplish for our students.
We've heard from a number of parents where teachers have actually said to them, I don't know why you're even trying. And that's obviously why Mark and I got into what we're doing now when we were told that couldn't be. So we've labeled this outrageous success because when we start to be able to think about things that might be outrageous or that might be out of the norm, we actually somehow come up with ways to be able to get there or get closer.
And as one mom said to us last week, they told me my kindergartner would probably be in special ed and graduated 5th grade last week and one of the best readers in his class. And that's our goal. So we're going to start first with what we call the persistent problems. People will often say to a parent, your child will outgrow this problem. That's actually not reality. Reality is that almost 90% of the first graders with a word identification problem will become poor readers in fourth grade, and over 70% of the struggling readers in third grade will still be struggling readers in 12th grade. And what's even worse and somewhat demoralizing is that the kids that are struggling, when they get into middle and high school, 45% of them are 3 to 5 years below grade level, and an additional 21% are 5 or more grade levels. Now, I'd like to tell you that this is a problem with socioeconomics, but we've had kids that fit into every one of these categories, and as recently as this last month. So if your kid's behind, you're not alone, and given the pandemic, the rates of kids struggling is higher than ever.
What's interesting about that is that parents know their kids are behind, but it really wasn't until this last week that the parent really recognized how far behind they really were. And it just makes for it's this definite swirling effect, right? That they're behind. But exactly what does that mean? And it means that they're struggling to work that much more. It doesn't mean that they're less smart. It just means they're working that much harder.
And one of the things I've said to a number of parents, and it's so true, this is not a parent's fault or a child's fault. What we basically have, and our expertise are smart kids who learn differently. We call them right brain learners. Is these kids are right brain learners in a left brain world. If the schools taught the way most of our students learn, they would be the ones doing well, and the others might be the ones struggling. So we're going to answer some questions tonight. One is my child a right brain learner? Now, people who are on LinkedIn might see Richard Branson and company talking about dyslexic thinking and dyslexic strengths. Turns out they're exactly the same strengths as a right brain learner has. It's not dyslexia that gives them the strengths. It's the fact that they're right brain strong and they're really creative. Then we're going to talk about executive function and visual processing problems that don't always exist but often do. Then we're going to talk about small changes make big differences. I know that I'm a recovering screamaholic, and when I made a small change of controlling my emotions, life got a whole lot better in my family.
We hear from parents all the time about how overwhelmed they are and they think that everything has to change. We're going to take it a step at a time so that you can make just small things, small changes, and you'll be amazed at what a difference that can make.
And we've had parents who say to me, is it really possible to improve my child's reading comprehension 2 and even 3 grade levels over the summer? We've literally had hundreds do that. And yes, it's possible. It takes work. Okay. But one of the things we do that's far different is we teach the way the kids learn, we address their problems, strive to ignite a love for learning, boost their self-esteem, and help you to be the coach and advocate your child needs.
We also meet them where they're at, which for so many of these kids are variable. Some things are lower, some things are higher. But we really try to work. We certainly meet where they're at, but we also feel very strongly about the fact that we need to identify their strengths, which we talked a little bit about last week. And you can get more information at our website about their strengths. But tonight we're going to talk about some of those strengths and setting goals. But more than anything, it's helping your kids and you be all what they can be. Take that from them.
What would outrageous success look like? We've had people who've come to us where third grade retention was a possibility. And having a child be promoted to fourth grade who might have failed a third grade Florida English language assessment is really not our goal. It's one of our goals, but the goal is actually to put a child much further ahead. So we've had kids go from a level 1, which is facing retention, to a level 4, where they're well above grade level. And then we want their key issues addressed. Now, we don't know what your child's key issues are, but Mira has a toolbox of assessments that allows her to figure out which ones are actually holding a child back. And it turns out to be a lot of the same issues that affect sports, affect motor planning, affect their whole life.
Motor planning and diet, balance, visual motor processing, all of these kinds of things are things that go into the mix for helping kids be successful learners and successful readers. We're here to tell you that it's not all about phonics and decoding and about fluency. There's so many other things that go into reading comprehension. And quite honestly, we need to be able to have a global goal that helps in all of those areas.
And igniting a love for learning is one of our key differentiators, because these kids come to school in kindergarten loving to learn, and somehow that's too often extinguished. And it's really one of our major goals. You want kids to be proud of who they are. And as one young lady said, who went from the worst reader in the third grade class to a best reader in a fourth grade class, she said, "Dad," or he asked her, how did that happen? She said, "Dad, they taught me how to create videos for what I read. Do you know how much fun that is?" And then we also want them to have more time to be a kid.
And especially in these times where kids have been so isolated socially, we truly want to be able to make this a summer that they start to be able to be interactive and doing fun things for kids. But we also can't take the risk of just having the summer off. We've heard from so many parents that, we know you're tired. Believe me, we know you're tired. Isn't it time to be able to try and look at something different? Look at something the way your child can be a kid, and you can be an outrageous kid.
Success stories. We won't dwell too long on these, but because when we talk to each parent, we talk to them about success stories that are relevant to a situation like theirs. But we've had second grader come in here comprehending at the kindergarten level after 2 years of phonics-based instruction, a reluctant reader and really shy and somewhat reserved. And she left. Within 4 months, she was reading comprehending at the second grade level. She got to third grade level in another 3 months. She read 23 chapter books in 6 months on her own. And her dance teacher said she went from one of the worst in the class to one of the best. And we asked her how. She said, "I can now remember my moves and my coordination's a lot better." Because when you address motor planning and learning at the same time, it pays dividends in so many ways.
It has to work together.
And we've had third grader who came to us who's actually asked to leave a school, and his mother said, "Give me a chance to see what we can do over the summer." He went from first grade level to fourth grade level in comprehension, and he wound up making more progress than any student or teacher has seen in 27 years of teaching. And it goes on. Okay, we've had people who also, parents have spent $34,000 in a phonics-based program. The child was still reading at the first grade level, got her to the fifth grade level within 6 months. It took longer than normal, but she got there. And it works for older students too, where a student went from the fifth grade level to the ninth grade level. We're seeing children or young adults who are 4 or 5, and in one case, 6th grade levels, 2 years below grade level. It's a real serious problem now. The pandemic has actually caused some of the best readers to go up because they read a lot during the pandemic, and some of the reluctant readers to fall further and further behind.
So we've identified at least 10 issues that are often coexisting with reading issues. Reading doesn't just happen. Well, they used to think 50 years ago that you just learned to read. Well, now we recognize that there's so many other issues that are often not identified or addressed, and even by some of the best educators. And what's really happening is that we're doing what we feel a lot of splinter skills. Oh, my child needs this from an occupational or physical therapist, or needs this from a speech person, or needs this from a vision person. And all of that is so true. But Reading Learner, we put that all together to be able to make that help that be a success. So reading levels certainly can mask a comprehension level. I'm sure that some of you are getting year-end report cards about how well your child is able to read, and fluency happens to be a really big issue. I can't tell you how many hundreds or thousands actually of students that we're seeing are actually really good little fluent readers. They dislike reading. Why? They have no idea what they're reading. They don't recognize words when they see them. Have you ever had that experience of having the same word on a different page, or maybe 2 or 3 pages later, and they don't recognize it, and you kind of want to tear your hair out? Also, sometimes the way high frequency, those words that you're having to help your kindergartners, first or second graders try to just plain memorize, and they show up on so many in so many sentences. In fact, it's about 60 to 80% of what we read are those high frequency words that don't seemingly have a picture, that can make all the difference in what they're reading, to be able to have that come alive, to have them understand. Obviously, vocabulary, not understanding multiple meaning words. Well, the English language is full of that. I can't tell you how many people that are non-English speakers have a really the parents report how English was just so difficult because they would mix up meaning. Well, think about that for a second, third, or fourth grader, let alone 10th or 11th graders who were getting ready for taking their college assessments. Working memory. We assume that accommodations of helping kids just through, we don't have to worry about that. That goes back to that word recognition and understanding and seeing high frequency words. That totally comes from the fact that sometimes working memory just is not where it should be. And the irony about all of that, which we'll talk to in a couple of slides later, is the fact that a lot of times these kids do have seemingly really good memory, but not in terms of working. Like, can I come up with the information that I need when I need it? Processing speed is also becoming much more of a problem. We're seeing so many really smart kids that are being assessed with outside assessments, and sure enough, working memory and processing speed are what's bringing down their IQ, of all things. Visual processing, motor planning, critical, it's critical to be able to understand what all of these different issues mean. We're really wanting to be able to get towards goal setting, but if you have any questions about what any of these things are, please don't hesitate to either ask in the box or to contact us, and we're happy to go through these. We just wanted to give you some background information about what the different issues are.
And if you'd like a copy of this presentation, just email us at info@3dlearner.com and put goal setting as the subject line, and we'll share this presentation with you.
Right. So, what kind of learner is your child? We're obviously talking about that right brain learner. Which one do you think is the right brain learner in this particular picture? Is it the child that happens to be reading every step of the directions? Wrong answer. It actually is this child that actually just has a picture in his or her. I'm the right brain learner in this relationship. Has a picture of what they want it to be, sometimes even different than the picture and better in their head, and they just go ahead and put it together. So, is my child a right brain learner? There are five questions that we've put together here that you should actually even consider. Does your child think in creative ways to solve a problem? We even had a parent that told us, yeah, my kid is even really gifted at being able to come up with excuses. Way better than my dog at their homework. Is your child a really emotional or sympathetic or empathetic to others? One of the other questions that we often ask parents is your child really good with younger children, older adults like senior citizens, or animals? And they're like, oh my goodness, you know my child. That's exactly who they're like, who they just have this unbelievable nonverbal relationship with them, because it's sort of this unconditional kind of acceptance. We also look at so many of these kids will observe and see differences or details in things that you didn't even know existed. I remember one of our own kids crying, don't you remember that person that had the blue hat? And we're like, oh my goodness, I just didn't even remember that there was that. Or certain details about a place that we've been. Of course, then that goes into remembering amazing details from past experiences or places visited. We lived overseas when our kids were younger, and our youngest was 1, and he can describe exactly what Hanleys looked like. the toy store,
Toy
or
Story.
what the house looked like, or various places that they went. And it's always so fascinating to me. And I overheard a conversation the other day with some other moms talking about, I don't understand how my son can remember something that he did when he was 2 years old. It's quite remarkable. And you know it when you hear it from your kids. And the last one that we're just talking about tonight is your child at least a lot smarter than certain results could indicate? Yes, so many kids are coming in with iReady scores or other kinds of testing scores and or grades. And we just need to be really careful because usually kids are a lot smarter than some of these results are indicating. And these scores can be lower for any number of the reasons that we actually spoke about in the slide before.
Now, this won't always happen, but we've had kids whose parents were told to be more realistic about their child's future, who wound up at schools like Harvard, MIT, University of Chicago, NYU. So when people share a negative perception of a kid, it's great when it's a catalyst for the parent to take significant action and to turn the situation around.
Right.
One of the things about it is when people call us and discuss about the kid, it's critical to understand that some of what they're alluded to is true in many, but not necessarily every one of the kids. So right brain learners do not all present the same way.
They don't have all of these, but they have, if one of these even rings true for you or your child, think about the possibility that really they do think differently. And quite honestly, it's about right brain learning. So, does my child have a working memory challenge? Well, we talked a lot about this a couple slides earlier. And one of the things that we talk about memory is, I just said, right? My child remembered so many things that happened to him or her such a long time ago. But giving them verbal directions, 2 or 3 directions, go get your shoes, and go get your shoes and your school bag and your lunch, and it's like you're lucky if they got 1 out of 3. And even following any kinds of directions, as we saw from the visual learner model, sometimes they just go directly to do the problem. And I'm pretty sure I can hear a lot of you parents out there going, oh my gosh, I'm always telling my kid, go back and read the directions. Why? I kind of look at that and figure out what it is that they want us to do. And every time I ask a child, don't you hate it when your teacher or your parent makes you erase what you did and have you redo it? And they're like, oh, there isn't anything worse. And we're like, what do you think could solve that? And of course they roll their eyes and smile and go, yeah, I guess I should probably read those directions. But the challenge with reading directions is they're made up of small words that sometimes kids just don't get. So they've come up with creative ways to be able to do the asked, requested work in a different way. And certainly we've heard this from any number of parents that the kids have a difficult time remembering math facts, whether it's addition and subtraction or whether it's multiplication. And there is, if you have this issue, you've probably found there's a whole industry out there that's revved up to be able to help your kids learn those multiplication facts.
One nice thing about it is we have a very different way of teaching kids both spelling and math facts. So it's not a life sentence that they will never understand how to do these skills.
This is true. A lot of times you find that your child, I can't tell you how many parents have said to me, in carpool line, we went over the spelling words and I know Susie knew them. It was like she knew them. And then she went to the test and she just completely bombed the test. I remember even in college thinking, it's kind of funny that I do what I do now, but I can so vividly remember thinking, walking from my dorm to the exam, that if I was going to trip on a rock somewhere, that I would all that knowledge would just sort of fall out of my head. You know what? I'm pretty sure I had a working memory problem even in college. Tried to work on it. The more I work with kids, the more I realize how important it is and what kinds of things you need to be able to do this. Also, can't tell you how many times we've heard this. Oh, my kid's going to soccer practice and he walked right past his how can he go to soccer practice and walk right past his cleats and not even take any of the things that he needs for soccer practice.
No problem.
That's right. What do we
Often
have?
happens.
That's right. Just so you know, even we have a picture of wallet, keys, and phone right by the door before we walk into the garage.
For me. It works, by the way.
It
Checklists work, and visual checklists work better. Probably the most common problem we see is, besides for the kids learning differently, is visual processing. And we had a mom today who, she's with us a couple of years ago. We'd refer to a vision professional, and she finally got into the vision professional recently. And the vision professional says, what you got to do is you got to see 3D Learner about this problem. And she said, well, that's how I got here in the first place. He says, it's not surprising. Visual processing is the single most common comorbid condition we have with learning differently. It includes things like skipping words and lines when reading, having difficulty catching a ball, being clumsy, missing signs on math tests, reading slowly. This is one that when you teach them the right academic skills, you need to work on visual processing and working memory, because that's what often causes the problem. The couple of thoughts on reading comprehension. Yes, despite what some school principals might say, it is possible to make significant gains within months. And most programs do not generate it, because most reading programs work on reading, the art of decoding, so I can fluently read. Somebody said you have to do an OG program, which is Orton Gillingham. Good programs, but their focus is on fluency, not comprehension. And it's important to have bold goals. And it's also important to think about the whole kid. So if a kid comes in with a reading comprehension problem, is a reluctant reader, and has low self-esteem, you want goals in all those areas. And we'll talk a little later about how do you actually write good goals, because I know I learned the hard way. I wrote a bad goal and it failed me miserably. And we'll talk about how do you change that.
It's just like anything else. You can obviously tell that we are not for status quo, but you can totally change things. And sometimes you have to come up with a different way to do it.
And by the way, just a moment on this. I've labeled Mira an educational conductor. Her father was a great musical conductor, and her real skill is putting together all the tools that are needed to help a kid succeed. Now, a number of years ago, when I was in management, I took a course in goal setting, and it said, write your goal, be positive, first person. And I wrote this goal. At the time, I weighed 200 pounds. And I wrote the goal. It's March 21st, and I feel good weighing 180 pounds. And I had no problem. A couple of months later, I still weighed 200 pounds. I'd done all the goal setting, all the affirmations.
Daily.
But I had not used emotionally compelling words. And when I did something right, like passing on a dessert, I didn't say to myself, that's just like me. I always passed on a dessert, even if it was the first time I'd done that. And when I made a mistake, I didn't say that's not like me, the next time I will. I rewrote the goal, picking a time 2 months out, saying I feel energized and fantastic weighing 180 pounds. And I affirm that twice a day. And sure enough, 2 months later, it read a little over 180, but that is okay. I wasn't worried about being a few tenths over. The key is when you get the goals right and you get the right actions in place, you can change a lot of things.
Emotion is key. So when we talk about goal setting, and everybody, I'm sure you've heard about a number of different kinds of goal setting, but goal setting, especially for the right brain learner, is about words, is about emotion. So we have 7 areas that we talk about for goal setting, which we talk about talking about a comprehensive assessment and igniting the love for learning. You'd be amazed at how many times I will first start out with kids and I'll say, look, I need you to even picture yourself reading and reading with a smile on your face and liking it. And of course, I get this. They have a really hard time. How are you going to get a kid any better at reading or liking reading if they can't even picture themselves doing that? They're sort of and understanding, having them understand what reading comprehension means. For so many of them, I think everybody thinks that once you're a reader, you can absolutely read everything. And I said, listen, my reading medical books or my reading law books is not necessarily something that I can truly comprehend. Why is that? Because I do not understand the context of the vocabulary that is used in that. So having kids understand what reading comprehension means for them and just getting a goal of a picture of having them be successful readers is a huge first step. I'm working on working memory, visual processing, and certainly how often they need to be able to do this. When the kids first started, like, oh, I really like reading and I don't want to have to read every day. When they start to be able to be successful, as we've written about the 3D child or the right brain learner, they go from aha moment to aha moment. Well, that aha definitely comes from having them feel really successful about the fact that they got it. And they get it from their connection and from their experience.
Which is why in a lot of our training, it's not explicit training. It's allowing the child to discover the patterns.
But it's within a specific framework. And it is definitely systematic. We start from where they're at and we add the pieces at a time as they get it and they recognize it. Remember, we talked about one of their big strengths is noticing things that so many others do not. You'd be amazed with what they come up with. It's quite remarkable.
And one of the things to talk about is when you're going whether for assessment or for a program, it's selecting the right professionals who know how to work with a child like yours, teach them the way they learn best and addresses the relevant challenges. And we've so often had people who accidentally went to somebody and spent years and tens of thousands of dollars doing something only later to realize their kid learned differently.
And by the way, it still takes a village. It really does.
And by the way, and a lot of what we'll talk about next week when we talk about collaboration and consistency, we talk about working with teachers and working with other professionals because it's really important.
Right.
Now, the goal setting tips. One, it's got to be first person. It's got to be the result you want as if it's done by a certain date and you can see it. And using emotionally compelling words, using affirmations, and then self-talk is so important. Again, as I said before, when you do something right, that's just like me. I always pick up my socks and throw them in the hamper. Even if for a kid, it's the first time they've ever done it. It affirms the new person they are. And when they make a mistake, it's not dwelling on mistakes. It's stop. That's not like you. The next time, put it away right away. And it's amazing how talking calmly and softly and just redirecting in a positive way can work.
Reaffirming what they've done correct and even approximately correct gets them to where they need to be. So we'll talk about that many right brain learners with executive function and visual processing and related issues, it sort of all comes together. You can see we've put it together in this particular diagram and where 3D learner fits to be able to put those all together and we intertwine them. It's sort of, I don't know where one circle ends and when the other one starts because one feeds the other.
And we've had a lot of professionals who will say, no, you first do A and then you do B and then you do C. And if you actually string those 3 or 4 interventions out, it might take a year and a half and you may not have even gotten to processing speed or working memory. So it's really different when you integrate it all into one approach.
And if you only know one thing, if you only end up doing executive function, for instance, and you don't know anything about how the child learns differently or that there are any other sort of processing or motor planning, and I do have to emphasize the way our body works is ultimately the way our brain responds. So it really feeds together. So sometimes there are certainly bigger issues, but you have to be able to know one to know the other to be able to make all of them work better. It truly is like that spiral It goes up and up and up. Because if you don't, the spiral can go the other way. And that's obviously not a positive thing. And we've had so many, unfortunately, we've come across so many families that has been their experience. We want to change that.
And here are just some sample goals. And again, if you want a copy of the presentation, the sample goals, just write us goal setting at info@3dlearner.com. But you'll notice that some of the words in here are, I feel ecstatic, I'm delighted, I feel terrific that, okay, I'm overjoyed that. The right words are the words that create an emotionally compelling message for you. And if it's for your child, for them. It's not words that I like, it's words, you've got a tug of war between present reality and where you want to be. And if you get excited about a result, or your child gets excited about a result, that's what's going to work.
And what Mark brings up is a really good point. Yes, these are suggestions of words, and these are goals that you and your spouse might want to work on together. But truly, it needs to be involving your child. So you might throw out different words, and then have your child either come up with their own, or choose the different ones that you've put out there, so that they really feel it. I'm going to tell you, Mark will truly attest to the fact that there are words that we both have different responses to emotionally. And it's what's really important to your child specifically about how they feel about it.
This may be the only setting that I can say to Mira, take a step back, and she'll just smile.
You can tell that's a bit of a statement that, I picture that, and that just gets me. That's a whole nother night. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk about the 7 steps to your child's pathway to success. We're going to try it. Remember, just small changes. Don't try and write 5 goals tonight, please. Let's take one at a time, and then build up to having that. But you'll be amazed if you just start with one and you see some successes. Hey, maybe your dishes will end up in the dishwasher, not just on the kitchen table, or maybe even in the sink. Again, choose whatever realm you'd like to be able to have it be a part of, and zero into that. And yes, think about what small things your kids could do that would make a big difference. I can't tell you how many times we've talked to parents and to the kids and have said, why do you think your parent gets so angry at you? And it's because I do this. And we're like, well, what would happen if you changed that? And they're like, as if they'd never thought about it. Not that anybody has ever said anything about that, right? But they're like, oh, I guess that could be. And I'm like, you realize how much power you have when you change that you do just that one thing, then you bring a smile to your parents' face, or grandparents' face, or teacher's face when you do something. It's pretty empowering, actually.
And the right questions is what we try to do. And when we have a discussion with a parent, and again, you can just call us at 561-361-7495, or we have our schedule online at 3dlearner.com/booknow, where you just can arrange a time to focus on what's important to you. Because I'll tell you this, every conversation with a parent's another adventure, because there are different challenges, whether it be 3rd grade retention, whether it be private school problem, whether it be somebody who's trying to homeschool. We have no bias on schooling. We want to help your child be successful and find the right school setting for them. We have a lot of experience in this area, but we come with very little biases other than we want the best for your child. Okay. And again, on our website, we have 3dlearner.com/strengths, or on our front page of 3dlearner.com, we have a list of strengths and weaknesses. Again, you can set up a meeting, and then we're going to be talking next Tuesday night. We're going to be talking about consistency, collaboration, and how you put it all together in a constructive way.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you have a good evening. If you're watching us on the replay, have a really great day. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
And please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to see you there. We'll be posting some more YouTube videos for you to watch. Thanks.
We will. Bye-bye.